What really happened thousands of feet above the ground, inside a silent first-class cabin that suddenly became the stage for one of the most worrying moments in BTS's history? Why did Jungkook, a man known for his calm composure even in the most high-pressure performances, admit that his voice shook when he spoke about Taehyung that day? And what truth hides behind the words, "he cried because he didn't feel well"? These questions have haunted the fandom ever since whispers began circulating about an incident during BTS's recent overseas trip to prepare for their long-awaited new album. An incident that started as a private struggle between two members, but ended with millions of armies across the globe holding their breath in fear and heartbreak. The moment began in the most unexpected way. The BTS members were returning from a grueling series of work sessions in the United States, where they had been finalizing tracks, shooting concept photos, and recording promotional content for their upcoming album. The flight was meant to be a quiet reprieve, a brief window of rest after weeks of back-to-back schedules. But rest never truly came for Kim Taehyung, known to the world as V. Somewhere over the Pacific, his body began to signal just how much it had endured. It started with something that might have gone unnoticed, a slight stillness. A pause in his usual subtle smiles, the way he leaned back into his seat as though willing his fatigue to dissolve into the hum of the engines. Jungkook, seated beside him, had noticed the shift. It was barely past the halfway point of the flight when Taehyung pressed a tissue to his nose, at first casually, as if it were nothing more than a minor irritation. But within seconds, the white fabric bloomed with red. That was the moment Jungkook's instincts took over. He leaned toward Taehyung immediately, his voice low but urgent, asking if he was all right. There was no dramatic outcry, no commotion that alerted the cabin crew instantly. Instead, there was a quiet exchange of glances, Jungkook's filled with concern, Taehyung's with an odd mixture of discomfort and apology. Jungkook guided him gently, holding him close in an instinctive gesture of protection, as if by creating a small shield of warmth, he could hold back the exhaustion threatening to spill over. But what happened next is the part that fans can't stop talking about. The part Jungkook himself revealed days later, in a voice that faltered more than once. He cried, Jungkook admitted, eyes cast downward. He didn't feel well, and it wasn't just the nosebleed. He was tired, more tired than I've seen him in a long time. I could feel it. The confession hit ARMY like a tidal wave. Taehyung crying, not from emotion alone but from physical strain, is an image almost too painful for fans to imagine. He has always been one of the members who tries to mask discomfort, often smiling through aches and sleepless nights. For him to break down mid-flight, in the quiet cocoon of Jungkook's presence, suggests just how deep the exhaustion had run. But why was he so exhausted? And why did Jungkook choose to speak about it now, knowing how fiercely private Taehyung can be about his health? Rumors have already begun to swirl. Some point to the punishing schedule BTS endured during their stay in the US. Late-night studio sessions, endless rehearsals, conceptual meetings, photo shoots, and vocal recordings that stretched into the early hours. Others suggest the emotional weight of the album itself may have played a role. This is, after all, their first major group project in a period filled with personal and professional crossroads. The more the story unfolds, the more questions emerge. Was this simply the result of fatigue, or was there more going on beneath the surface? An illness, perhaps, or an unspoken pressure that pushed Taehyung beyond his limits? Jungkook's words didn't come during a formal press conference or a polished interview with a magazine spread waiting in the wings. They slipped out in a setting that felt almost unguarded, a live stream meant to connect with fans, to share a little warmth in between the rush of schedules. Yet the moment he mentioned Taehyung's tears, the air shifted. His usual ease, that playful spark that dances at the edge of his smile, dimmed noticeably. His eyes softened, and for a heartbeat, his voice barely rose above a whisper. He cried, and I just wanted him to rest, Jungkook said, as though the memory was replaying in front of him. You know Taehyung, he doesn't like to show when he's not okay. But this time, it was different. That single statement cracked open a door that the fandom rushed to peer through. Different how? What had Jungkook seen that shook him enough to share it with millions of people? And perhaps more importantly, what had Taehyung been holding back in the days leading up to that flight? The story began to travel faster than anyone could track. Within minutes, hashtags like #GetWellSoonTaehyung and #WeLoveYouTaehyung were climbing social media trends worldwide. Fans replayed Jungkook's clip, dissecting every shift in his tone, every flicker in his eyes, looking for hidden meaning. Was there guilt there for not noticing sooner? Fear for what it might mean? Or simply the helplessness that comes when someone you care about is hurting and you can't make it stop? Inside the fandom, theories began stacking like dominoes. Some believed Taehyung's nosebleed was purely the result of exhaustion, the long flights, the constant schedule changes, the stress of perfecting an album that has been in the works for months. Others pointed out that nosebleeds can sometimes signal deeper health concerns, especially when paired with visible fatigue and emotional strain. And then there was the question no one wanted to voice too loudly. Could this have been a warning sign that Taehyung's body had reached a breaking point? The image of him on that flight refuses to leave the minds of those who heard Jungkook's account. The cabin lights dimmed, the hum of the engine surrounding them, Jungkook's arm steady around Taehyung as he kept a folded tissue pressed gently to his face. The kind of intimacy born not from romance, but from brotherhood, the unspoken language of two people who have survived the same battles and carried each other through storms the public never sees. It's easy for outsiders to forget that behind the global fame, the record-breaking numbers, and the meticulously crafted performances, BTS is still made up of human beings who bleed, tire, and fall ill like anyone else. The difference is that when it happens to them, the whole world is watching, and the pressure to carry on, to reassure millions that everything is fine, can become its own invisible weight. Jungkook's decision to speak about the incident at all suggests that the moment left a mark on him too. His choice of words, soft, careful, but edged with emotion, didn't just inform fans, it revealed something about his own state of mind. He wasn't just a witness. He was a participant in that moment, the one Taehyung leaned on, the one who felt every tremor of his exhaustion. But here lies another layer of intrigue. Why speak about it now? Why not keep it private, as many similar incidents have been in the past? Was it a quiet cry for fans to understand the toll their work takes? A subtle warning that the members' health should not be taken for granted? Or perhaps Jungkook simply couldn't carry the memory without sharing it with those who love Taehyung almost as fiercely as he does. The more fans discussed it, the more personal accounts began surfacing from those who had seen the members at the airport before the flight. A few sharp-eyed armies noticed Taehyung moving slower than usual, his steps just slightly less energetic, his posture more relaxed as though conserving energy. It wasn't obvious enough to cause alarm then, after all. Long travel days and photo flashes can make anyone look weary, but in hindsight, those small details now seem like early signs. What's more, leaked whispers from within the industry have only fanned the flames. A source allegedly connected to the airline claimed that cabin crew were discreetly aware of Taehyung's condition and had been ready to assist, but Jungkook had quietly reassured them he would handle it. The image of Jungkook, calm yet protective, shielding Taehyung from both curious eyes and the physical discomfort of moving in such a state, has only deepened the emotional response from fans. And yet, the greatest question still lingers, heavy and unanswered. Just how bad was it? The hours before the flight and the emotional weight they carried. To understand why Jungkook's revelation about Taehyung's tears hit so hard, you have to trace the timeline backward, back to those final hours in the United States before BTS boarded the plane. It wasn't just another trip abroad. It was an intense, sleepless sprint toward one of the most crucial milestones in their career. A new group album that fans have been waiting years for, and one that carries the weight of expectation like never before.